As we started to gain traction, there was always these shiny objects, these, hey, you should be doing solar, you guys should be developing your own technology. And there's all these moments like, yeah, I think we should, but right now we need to win sort of one gold medal at a time is what I kind of always tell my team, because it's so easy to get distracted.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host, Tyler Kelly. Tonight, we're at Venture Cafe Miami. Venture Cafe being the largest gathering of innovators anywhere in the world. So if you're near one of the Venture Cafe cities on a Thursday evening, I suggest you go check it out. You're going to have a good time. You're going to meet some amazing people. Speaking of amazing people, we have Richard Lamondin with us tonight. Richard, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
So Richard is the co-founder and CEO of Ecosystems, which is a rapidly growing water and energy conservation firm, which is focused on sustainability for the real estate industry. The company has saved billions of gallons of fresh water and millions of dollars in utility cost in their quest to prove that conservation is good for business. Under Richard's leadership, in 2019, Ecosystems was named the second fastest growing firm in Florida and ranked number 75 on the Inc. 5000. Welcome to the show.
That's correct, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of those companies that, like, when you read it on paper, you see Ecosystems, you hear about real estate. And for the listeners out there, you brought us this toilet bowl coffee mug. You would have really no idea what you do. So what is it that Ecosystems actually does?
And that's usually the case in the first question, because basically conservation is good for business is our mission. It all really takes us back to where we started, which is my brother and I wanted to start an environmentally friendly company. We had a feeling that to get the business community involved, we had to make sure that it was good for their bottom line. And so what we did was we started analyzing condominium budgets and saw that really high water costs and thought, what can we do about this? We started researching on the EPA website, saw stats like U.S. homes waste 1 trillion gallons of water every year, that 20% of all toilets in the U.S. are leaking right now, up to 200 gallons of water a day. And so we thought, I think the answer might be in toilets. And so flash forward a little bit, we've installed, I forget the exact number, but well over 80,000 toilets nationally, but that's only one small piece of what we do. But it is the foundational piece of what we do. And so we are always true to the toilet. And actually this week was World Toilet Day, believe it or not.
So how do you get, just like on the surface, you would think that this industry is already locked up, right? How do you get into, as an entrepreneur, an industry where, there's already toilets in all the condominiums? Like, walk me through, your approach.
That's a great question. So our approach is, first of all, in order to make an impact when focusing on real estate, and when you look at the statistics of where a lot of the waste is, it's in apartment communities, it's in hotels, it's in condominiums. Actually, 95% of what we do right now is actually in large multifamily apartments. Most of that is because it's one decision maker and you can really make an impact across the whole country. What we do is we design and implement different programs. So we'll go and we'll assess a property. Usually they're 20 years or older, so their products are old, they're outdated. We look at their lighting, we look at how they're handling air conditioning, we look at a lot of different pieces, and we design programs that basically have a really strong return on investment. Two different languages I use. One of them is the one that we care about, mission. With them, it's all return on investment, dollars and cents. And what we do is, where we differentiate is that our installation teams are in-house. So when we design a program, they know that we're actually going to be implementing it. And so our name's on the whole process from start to finish. And so that could be anything from upgrading bathrooms, upgrading LED lighting, smart thermostats, putting in IoT devices, analyzing their consumption. I mean, it's a wide variety of services, but the bottom line is savings for the environment.
So it's more than just toilets.
It's more than just toilets. It's just, that's my favorite piece, to be honest. You have to really love the porcelain to be in this business. And another thing you touched on is the fact that, yes, there's a lot of folks out there. There are plumbers out there. There are electricians out there, but very few of them can scale it nationally. So we're pretty unique in that we have right now 7 teams that travel the country 365 days a year executing projects. We have teams all the way from Washington State right now to Orlando. And those teams are not permanently based there. They'll go to Atlanta next, or maybe Nashville, or maybe Texas after that. And they go wherever the projects are. And so we kind of tend to be geographically neutral. And by that, we're able to scale our impact pretty significantly.
So you mentioned something that's kind of interesting to me. So you said something about mission and then bottom line. And you're talking about how, like, you've got a mission, but a lot of your customers just care about the bottom line. Are you finding that there's any crossover in those things?
That's really good. I think once they see our results, there's crossover when they realize that being a good environmental steward is actually responsible, just life decision. It's not expensive. It's quite the opposite. And so we've seen a huge change. We started by talking and leading with conservation, how many gallons, how much CO2 you're keeping out of the atmosphere. And that never seemed to move the needle until we got to the point where it's, hey, you're also going to save $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year. All of a sudden people are listening, and now they're asking us for, hey, what's our impact, right? How do we do this month? And then started to incorporate that into what they're giving to their investors, what they're telling their employees. And so I think that you meet them where they are, right? There's some of our customers are like, hey, I want to save, I want to help, but we'll talk with whatever language, and when we qualify customers and we talk to people, they'll usually give you the indication of where their head's at, and so that's what I teach every person in the company is meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's great advice, and use their language, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The impact so you said you're in how many cities, or like you've been in?
So don't quote me 100%, but about 125 cities in 26 states across the country.
And since this is your purpose, like I'm sure you're tracking like your impact.
Oh yeah.
As a company, tell me about that.
So we've saved over 2 billion gallons of fresh water. We've saved, I think, 50,000 tons of carbon and kept it out of the atmosphere. I'm blanking on how many tons of coal that is burned, but it's a significant number. But really, proverbially speaking, it's just a drop in the bucket, right? I mean, we as a company have grown so much, but there's still so much out there that hasn't been touched, both in apartments, hotels, pretty much every type of real estate there is, that it's only now where I feel like our numbers are really going to start escalating.
Do you feel like you were early, like in this? I mean, so there's obviously, especially I'm sure with multifamily owners, right, that they don't necessarily have like a brand that they have to protect. So because of that, they probably are more lax on standards and things like that, as opposed to like a major brand. But what I'm getting at is, do you see that consumer sentiment is changing, and like these sorts of things are being demanded more in the marketplace in terms of eco savings, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
And it all depends on who the demographic is. When you go to conferences, you'll hear them now talk about millennials, and they kind of still talk about our generation as like fresh out of college, when that's not the case anymore. Like, millennials want to live in a green housing and blah, blah, blah. And it's all these baby boomers talking about that. And it's true. But they're only just now catching on to the fact that you want to feel good about the place you live in. So that didn't exist when we started in 2012. California hadn't gone through their historic drought. LED was all the rage, but water conservation wasn't even on anyone's radar. And it took a lot of educating at that time, which I think really slowed down our early days. It took us 5 years to really believe that we were going to be able to do this for a living, right? But now, conferences, now they're coming out with a lot of technology around water monitoring, and IoT companies are all trying to get into environmental savings. And so there's been a massive sea change there. On top of that, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae have come out with green financing for these owners as well. And so everything's starting to snowball, but you're absolutely right that I think this industry was one of the slowest up on the take. But even hospitality, where, you go to your hotel room and they say, hey, don't let us wash your sheets or your towels, and that's nice, but that's only one step, right? And so even hospitality in other areas that seem to be more savvy still have a long way to go in this arena. But I feel good about it. Things are changing for the positive.
So how did you actually start? You're a co-founder. How did Ecosystem start?
So we're two brothers. My brother is my partner. We started, I was actually living in Shanghai, China at the time, and he was fresh out of University of Miami. He's one of the lucky ones who's never actually worked for somebody. And we'd been talking about some thoughts we had on conservation. And like I said before, initially we started by consulting and looking at bills. We saw those really high water and sewer bills. We saw the statistics, but we didn't quite know how to implement. And so what we did is we went in the market, we talked to plumbers, we talked to a lot of folks dealing with just the water devices. Fast forward, initially we were doing stuff with just the interior tank of the toilet. We'd gut the toilets, we'd put in these products, we'd adjust them, they'd have a little bit of leak detection in them, and we'd save. First property we did was 300 units. They only gave us, I think, 30 to do on a trial. They didn't believe us at all. And we went in there, we did the project, we saved 67% off their bill. It was a really wasteful community, and they were like, wow. But they only gave it to us 30 at a time at stages, 30 apartments at a time. Didn't believe us until the thing was finally done. But that was our first project. That was pretty much the only project we did for the first year. It was really hard. So we're totally bootstrapped, by the way. So we had side hustles in real estate, lived in our parents' house for an inappropriately long period of time. But that project was a catalyst. We got into with some bigger companies. Eventually, a company by the name of Pensum Capital, who's down here, they bought a property in Denver that was 2,500 bathrooms, 1,500 apartments. They asked us, hey, can you do this work in Denver? We'd never done more than about 50 at a time. We said, yeah, of course we can. And we went in and we knocked it out in 3 months when the utility there expected 5. It was the largest water conservation project in Denver history. And that was basically the kickoff. The management company then asked, hey, we have 10,000 apartments across 5 states. You guys have done that before, right? Yeah, of course we have. Let's do it. And so we started rolling out teams. And that's literally how we started, where finally we got our break. And it all kind of snowballed there through referrals.
Wow. That's got to feel good. Did one of your first biggest projects to be the largest in history of water conservation for that community. So that's got to feel good.
It felt really good, except the funny part is we didn't know quite how big of a team we'd need. So we pulled in every part-timer we'd ever worked with. We stuck everyone in a 4 or 5 bedroom Airbnb in Denver. The second in command of my brother who ran that project slept on an air mattress on the pool table. You know what I mean? And so we learned a few valuable lessons that we employ today. One is don't put everyone in the same house. Personalities. 2, especially in winter, people don't jive so much, but yeah, we knocked that project out, but it was messy on the back end, but you never let your customers see that. And really the quality was there, and we were obsessed with, that was our shot. Right. And we didn't know it at the time, but we sensed it. And yeah, we were lucky, but we made the most of our luck. Right.
So how did you get from there to scaling up to what you have now?
So up until May of this year, we never had a salesperson on staff. We've been very fortunate. The way this industry works in a lot of things here is you usually have an owner and a management company, and they're separate. So I mentioned before, the ownership group is the one who brought us into that project. The management company is the one who then offered us these big portfolios with other ownership groups, right? That almost ended up like a constellation web, where then, other owners within that management group heard about us and used us, and they had other management companies in other markets. And so we started really expanding out, really through referrals and through quality, which is something we obsessively focus on, that's one of the reasons why we have in-house teams, is because you can control quality versus the industry standard is to subcontract, right? And we also did a lot of the analysis work. We did the hard work. We applied for their rebates. We brought in other technologies that may be interested them, like smart thermostats or some other things like that. And so we really added value beyond there. It's been crazy, particularly this year. You know, I could say all the numbers are published on Inc. right now, but yeah, we went from basically 150,000 revenue in 16 to 2 million in 17 to 6.7 in 18. We're probably going to break 10 this year, and we want to double that next year. So we're moving, but it's definitely been the kind of growth rate that it's been hard to catch your breath.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Like, that's a pretty significant, increase. I'm sure, let's say, so year 3, you went to 6. Am I right?
Almost 7.
Almost 7. So that's probably, you're like, like what are the new challenges that you were facing? I think, anytime you double, there's new challenges, and then you kind of get it figured out. And then as soon as you get it figured out, it's like another moment where you have to figure it all out again, right?
Definitely. I mean, think about it. We went from my brother and I living in a back house. I mean, our first office that we got with just the two of us, then we hired our director of operations, was probably an illegal sublet above a Moroccan handicraft shop with an apartment attached with a bunch of stoners. And office down the way for a while had like 2 basically homeless people sleeping there. But it felt like luxury to us. We'd been working out of our back house the whole time. Everything at different stages broke, right? First, we needed to make the processes. We needed to make sure our teams, had the structure they needed to succeed. I mean, that's been an ongoing thing. That first team of 10 is now, most of our teams are 4, 5 people maximum. So we've been able to do more with less as we've gotten better. But everything from our purchasing, even up until now, we don't have a full-time finance person on staff. That's only just a hire that we're making because everything else took precedent until double payments on invoices started to get caught, and then we realized like, oh crap, right? And since we're totally bootstrapped, we knew we were profitable because the bank account was going up, so to speak, but we didn't really have cost controls, and so there's a lot of things on that side. On operations, our analytical team, how do my brother and I as founders, start delegating and bringing the right folks on to unburden us, who used to be the full company, to allow us to scale everything. And so, yeah, there's been ongoing challenges. This year in particular has been a lot of the debt we accrued over those years seemed to all pay off this year. And but we're getting there, right? That's always everyone's challenge.
So what would you say are the most important lessons? Obviously, there's different lessons at different phases, but the most important lessons that you think you could share from that growth track?
Sure. I think one of them is focus, 100%. Particularly as a bootstrap company, resources are limited. I think for any company, resources are limited. And as we started to gain traction, and even before that, there was always these shiny objects. These, hey, you should be doing solar, you should be doing, solar carports or whatever. There's a million things we could be doing. You guys should be developing your own technology. And there's all these moments like, yeah, I think we should, but kind of the path we're on, the building blocks we've built are profitable. And, right now we need to win sort of one gold medal at a time is what I kind of always tell my team, because it's so easy to get distracted. Both time and money is spread out, and then you kind of flop on everything because you're not ready to take it on, right? So I think focus is extremely important, and knowing when you're really able to start expanding. For example, this year we acquired a lighting company, and we got involved in LED lighting because that's something customers were asking us. And we're building blocks on to roll out other additional services that I can't talk about yet, but maybe next time we see each other. So that's really the most important thing. I think another thing, a lesson we learned is that it's okay to be profitable, right? I think you see a lot of folks who raise or even who don't, that focus too much on the product and don't focus enough on generating revenue. It takes a big load off when, first of all, you're not playing with other people's money. and second, when you know that one wrong decision isn't going to put the whole company under. So I think really focusing on revenue and making sure that every founder understands that they are a salesperson, whether they like it or not, is extremely important. Beyond that, it's this. I think something everyone always says is make sure you have good people, right? Early on, you're not going to be able to pay them as much as if they went in the corporate world, but make sure your mission is strong enough that they want to stick around. And we're fortunate that we've had some really amazing people help us grow. You never do it alone. So that's probably my top 3.
I think that people one's a pretty important one. And maybe this is another small, what do you look for in a good person? What makes a good person for your company?
So we have an interesting culture. Since Lawrence and I, we started in the field doing the work ourselves. We have a little test we sort of do with everyone who joins the company. Every person, whether they're an accountant or they're an actual field manager, has to work on a job site. We don't care what your function is. Because first of all, the heart and soul of our company are our teams. They're the ones who are executing the projects for us. They're the ones out there every day, no matter the weather. And so we want make sure everyone understands that it flows from them. Sometimes there is an interesting juxtaposition having both white collar and blue collar under the same roof. And so that's usually a test. If someone is not willing to go out for just a couple days and work, no matter gender, function, whatever, that's usually a deal breaker for us. The second is that we need entrepreneurial minded people. We need people that are willing to fill gaps that maybe are not in their job description. And I think that that's really a separator between whether someone is fit for a starting or scaling company or whether they belong in corporate America, because we've had in our growth journey people who, once we grew, stop wanting to do the little things. For example, go out and fill a gap on a project for a week, or go down from their function and do stuff like data entry for a few days while someone's out, and that all that and kind of gelling together is extremely important when your resources and your staff are very limited. So I look for that entrepreneurial mindset, and then now things are changing a little bit. I'm looking for sort of expertise and drive and rock stars in their field. I mean, we just put up a job description for a director of finance. So if anyone would like to apply, please feel free to reach out to us, ecosystems.com. But I'm looking for someone who can both do the basic accounting work and learn our business and then grow our KPIs and our systems out from there, right? Not someone who comes in on top and expects everything to be done for them. And that's a hard person to find, but you can't compromise on that, in my opinion, until we become a gigantic corporation. So
you probably still want to compromise at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, at some point we may need to, and we have some thoughts around some technological services of our own, and rolling out some maintenance-based services that are really being underutilized in the industry that we're seeing. But we think that we have a really strong advantage in being willing to get our hands dirty, right? To solve this problem, you can develop a really elegant piece of technology, but when there's so much being wasted at the base level, it's so hard to ignore, right? And so I feel like that's a foundation that we will always kind of hang on to, and what can we do in a time where the trades are becoming more and more important again to kind of elevate them to the 21st century, right? In focusing on conservation, in focusing on jobs that can't be automated, right? No matter what you do, you're not going to really, for the foreseeable future, be able to automate. When you pick up a toilet, for example, and you see a gaping hole where the floor's supposed to be, like, you got to have an expert there. No robot's going to fix that, right? And so really pushing the boundaries of what our teams can accomplish with us on top of them developing new systems and technologies, I think is going to be a really fun experiment over the coming years.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Richard. Thank you for being on the show. Tell everyone that's listening and watching how they can connect with Ecosystems, social media, website, all of the above.
So the best way to reach us is still the old-fashioned way, ecosystems.com. You can find us on Instagram, ecosystems / Facebook at ecosystems _USA, LinkedIn. I forget the exact one, but just look up ecosystems and we'll probably be there. And feel free to drop me a line anytime, richard@ecosystems.com. Look forward to chatting.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at WeAreSlam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to